to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luan, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. My guest today is Christopher Grubb, the president of Beverly Hills-based Arch Interiors Design Group, which is internationally recognized for its interior and exterior, high-end residential, commercial, medical, health and beauty, and retail design projects. Christopher has been called a style maker and an expert design influencer by clients, editors, manufacturers, and producers alike. Throughout his career, Christopher has been a sought-after speaker on what makes design compelling. He has been a contributing writer to many media outlets, as well as a guest judge for multiple design competitions. Arch Interiors has been featured in books, hundreds of magazines and newspapers, and Christopher has shared his design skills on multiple radio and television shows, including recurring appearances on LXTV, NBC, and Martha Stewart Living Radio. Christopher also hosts design segments for House Tipster. Maybe you've seen him doing some of these interviews at some of the furniture markets. The firm has received dozens of awards and is honored to be named the best interior design firm in California by Build magazine. He was also featured as an entire issue of World Architecture magazine in Hong Kong with over 70 pages exclusively covering the works of Arch Interiors. Christopher has also been named one of the 50 innovators in kitchen and bath design in 2017. Today on the show, Christopher will tell us a bit about how, in 2010, he began creating affordable luxury products for the consumer market with the launch of the CG Collection. The first launch was a line of bathroom furnishings for Modern Bathroom, and one of the products was nominated by Interior Design magazine as Product of the Year. Realizing the success of this collection being sold in showrooms and through retailers like Home Depot and Lowe's, Christopher continues to develop furnishings and products with an eye on affordability. In 2015, Christopher launched a new studio, Autograph by Christopher Grubb. This line is comprised of unique, beautifully constructed products with rich features and alluring details for the most discriminating consumer clientele. Truthfully, treat yourself and look at Christopher's website. His work is elevated, elegant, and his list of awards, which are some 20 or more, are quite remarkable. And then when you listen to the show today, pay particular attention to the things that even though his business is 20 plus years old and his projects are large and detailed, notice what he is certain to be on top of daily, that he does not turn over and he does not simply trust that someone is managing. Do you think you could take a guess at what this would be? I mean, I'll give you a minute to think about it. So, did you come up with it's his financials? I hope you did. All right. So just keep an eye out for that part of the conversation. It's very telling. Now, before we get to the show, I want to give a big shout out to the sponsors for Luan Live. It's about the conversation. Have you heard about this event yet? If you haven't, please go to luanlive.com for all the details on this incredible opportunity to learn, to grow, to connect, and to transform your business in 2019. And the sponsors who are making this possible include Cravat Inc., My Doma Studio, Wingnut Social, Schwartz Design Showroom, Designer Inc., Pollock Weitzner, Merrill Landis Drapery Workroom, the WCAA, which is the Window Covering Association of America, East End Interiors in Long Island, and Exciting Windows. I cannot wait to introduce you to the leaders of these companies and for you to learn about their products and services at Luan Live. It's about the conversation. So if you haven't signed up yet, you head on over to luanlive.com. Okay, now I'd love to introduce you to Christopher Grubb. Hi, Christopher. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, Luan. Well, thank you for having me. How's everything?
I'm great, thank you. And this took us almost 6 months to make happen since we met each other in High Point in October 2018, right?
It did, and two busy people, that's how it goes. And I also want to say congratulations on a 3-year anniversary you have coming
Oh,
up.
yes, thank you, thank you. I do. And my 400th episode is going to air exactly on the day that we're having the birthday party for the podcast at Cravat in New York City at the D&D.
Oh, terrific. Well, congrats. All of us people in business and owners know to keep it growing and growing. It's a phenomenal thing. So congrats.
Thank you. Thank you. So here's the thing. Your body of work and the level of the luxury that your firm has created is really exceptional. And of course, I've met and interviewed a lot of interior designers, and there is, I just was like, yeah, not your average guy who just interviews people in the industry.
Yeah, well, and thank you for that. Yeah, I'm very proud of my work, and I mean, we're at like 780 projects we've done, and I'm passionate about it, and love my clients that love the project when it's done, and referrals. And so, thank you. I'm proud of my work, and I appreciate the recognition for it.
Yes, definitely. Well earned. So here's the thing. There's a lot of things happening there. So you have this firm and you are doing residential design. You're doing high-end exclusive medical design in the Los Angeles area. I'm sure you have projects all over. And you are also a product designer at this point. This is, another layer to what you're doing in your interior design firm. And so I guess the question that I'd like to start with, because there's a couple things I want to cover. I want to cover a conversation about the high-end medical design, because I know that we have this gap in the content of my podcast on hospitality and commercial design. And so I'd like to have a little conversation about that. But then I do want to learn about your product line and the products that you design and develop, and the distribution and how those things are made. Because we do have a lot of peers out there listening, Christopher, that are always trying to figure out that and navigate that. So let's first talk about the nuances, since you are really prolific at both residential and this aspect of commercial. The differences in, talk to a designer listening who is maybe in the field and thinking the grass is greener of a commercial. I want to be commercial, or I just know I want to be commercial. Let's talk to that designer for a little bit about the pros, the cons, the tips to look out for, and the way that those projects differ from residential projects. Is that something we can start with?
Oh yeah, that's easy. So, and a clarification. So our high-end medical is a part of commercial. So our commercial too is high rises and private offices. And I know it's a tough distinction sometimes because they do blur. And speaking of distinction, I think first as a designer, you can't look at these as, well, this is this, this is this, this is this. If you're passionate about design, look at it as a design project. And the other thing too is with commercial, the tough one is knowing the codes, and what are the requirements for codes in a commercial space. Even in medical, we have to meet certain products, certain use of product that gets them medical licensing. And so there is an educational aspect, but don't be afraid of it. I mean, commercial, it's like, okay, you need 18 inches clearance here, and the quarter has to be 42 inches minimum with furniture. And it's not an overwhelming amount of information you need on certain codes. So that's my number one, is don't look at them as, okay, well, wait, that's commercial and it's a whole separate thing. It is, but it isn't.
Okay.
And there's a term that's been starting to be used. You mentioned the interviews I do for House Tipster, which is very exciting, the people we get to meet. And we covered Neocon because I talked about, well, look, there's so much commercial product, like carpet tile, like vinyl flooring, like vinyl wall covering you could wipe down, that we do in residential. And there's a term started calling it resimercial. And so it is this blending of crossing product over, which I've done for 25 years just because of my experiences. So for a designer thinking about it, look at it as a design project, not as a distinction.
Okay. Okay. So that would speak to the sourcing and that aspect of it. But there's differences and nuances in the client management, and also how about just the opportunity? Do you find, I really don't know the answer to this. Do you find that most commercial firms are not just born that there's a, like, I don't know how to describe that. In other words, I would think it is a higher bar to open from scratch a commercial firm than a residential firm. I don't know why I think that. Is that crazy?
Oof, I don't want to say you're crazy. I think they're both difficult. The difference with a typical commercial firm is there's kind of a math to it. Meaning, here comes a project. Let's say it's an office, and so they charge so much for a space plan per square foot, and then here's finishes, and then here's this, and it's much more mathematical. That's one of the distinctions we have for getting projects is we don't subscribe to that. Our services are so different all the way through purchasing, which commercial firms don't typically do. It goes to a purchasing agent. And as an owner, the markup on product is always helpful for profit. And so, to follow that math, they're both difficult. I think that the benefit for a lot of residential designers, and it's happened with commercial designers, is when your client says, "Oh, do you do offices?" Or the commercial client says, "Oh, do you do residential?" I've had clients for 4 years that, commercial, and they turn and go, "Do you do residential?" It's like, "Do you not know what I do?"
You've never been to my website, crazy
Right,
lady.
exactly. And so a lot of times there's your entree. There's your entree to not say, "Oh, no, I don't," but I'd love to look at the project. And so I can't say either one which is easier to start or which is more difficult. I think residential, because it's not so much math and the variety of product and the variety of finishes and things, that makes the job more difficult. But I wouldn't say starting any business is easy.
No, you're exactly right about that. And I guess where my brain falls on it is when I think about, I've put my shingle up. I'm, Sally Smith, commercial interior designer. I feel like, and this might be because my lack of knowledge, right? But I feel like when I do that as a residential interior designer, we have had designer after designer tell us that they got their firm off the ground by starting with their friends and family and acquaintance network on, "Hey, everybody, I'm now an interior designer if you have any projects." And I just feel like that so many have said, well, it started because I did my own house, and then people saw it on Instagram, or I did my mother's house and her friend wanted it. Whereas commercial, it's like, I feel like it's almost more knocking on doors going, "Do you need your building redesigned?" And then it becomes more of that bid process. Like you said, that mathematical equation. It's a little harder. What you do, you nuanced it there, you referenced it a little bit there, is you don't subscribe to that completely finite mathematical equation, because it sounds like to me, you're bringing more value, and you're saying, look, don't just look at the hardline bid that everybody's doing, because I'm going to give you 20 things above that bid. But so many commercial projects are bid driven, right? Fit in this square footage with these finishes, and try and put your creative spin on it, but it's all going backwards into the money funnel, right?
Well, and to your point with commercial as well, do you have that experience? If you're going to simply pursue commercial, do you have that experience? If you're at a commercial firm now and thinking of going on your own, are you paying attention to how do they do the billing? How do they do the marketing? Designers, that haven't gone on their own, we love to do design. We can do it better than, who we're working with. I had a wonderful employee that was with me 12 years and went out on her own. And we went to lunch, and she said, "I want to apologize to you." I said, "For what?" She said, "I had no idea what it was like to run a business. And I know that there was times I was kind of grouchy that you would ask me questions. I had no idea." So any firm you're at, that was the beauty of my prior two jobs, was observing and really questioning, okay, how do you do this? How are you getting clients? What are you doing to market? You need that education if you're going to go on your own. I knew people that before the recession went on their own and got some projects that started out and then crashed and burned because they did not have enough experience yet, marketing experience. How do you grow beyond just your friends and just your family? And so it's going to happen either way. Make sure you're educated, and if you're passionate about commercial, how are you going to stand out differently? You know, what we stand out differently because we're a boutique firm, because our work is really intimate. We have won projects over big firms here in LA, international firms, because of this intimacy on the offerings we have as a service. And so that's another thing, is how are you going to distinguish yourself as a commercial designer if that's what you want to do? But to your point about, you know, my friend did this and my friend saw me redid the house and can I help with that? Use that opportunity. It comes up a lot where whatever you're doing, they're going to ask you, hey, would you work on this? I did trade show booths for 3 years. And it was a client was like, oh, we're going to be showing in Vegas. You used to do projects in Vegas at one of my firms. Can you do a trade show booth? It was like, sure. And I walked out of the meeting and I'm like, how do you do a trade show booth? You know, and so educated, found the connections, and it was one of those. I ended up doing, I don't know, 15 or 16 over the next couple years, and it was something that was great, but I had learned with the competition and what was there and the offerings we had, yes, we could still do them, but the formula that was out there wasn't going to work for what I wanted to do, and I knew I needed to put my energy somewhere else. So
I love it. I mean, and the thing is, your point in there is, how are you going to stand out? And the way you in your firm, and as you describe, is a boutique a boutique commercial firm, or boutique firm, but your commercial interiors are strictly boutique. And what you mean by that, because you said it to me off air, is that your commercial, when you do your commercial interiors, these high-end medical facilities, you do it at your firm turnkey. So when you were in that instance where you're describing going against a bigger international firm, that firm is probably going to do the design and specifications, and then it's going to get handed over to a purchasing thing and another person for installation and all of that. Whereas you say, no, we're doing it start to finish, and these things are going to happen because we do it start to finish, and they're going to elevate not only the final product but also the experience. And if you want that, we're your people, and if you don't, we're not competing against that other person, because we're not going to just do the one design specification and walk away. Do I understand you correctly?
Oh, yeah, very, very much so. And I think what it is at the beginning, you know, we show our work. I emphasize customer service. I emphasize that our team is there for them. They're not going to just meet me and then get passed off. I think what they like is it's my firm only. It's not going to be going to a purchasing agent. It's not going to be going to a separate project manager. And for this day and age with time, and if you're taking over a facility, you're paying rent.
Yes.
And you want somebody that understands what are the limitations and what should I expect. And I have one person to work with, not a multitude of people. And so that's really what helps us stand out, is that relationship that they're going to have with a company that's a boutique and a person versus a firm. And that's been a lot of the compliments and the repeat work for that. And our final product is something that, you know, they love. It gets very recognized, published in those things, which is always a wonderful thing. But that's really our distinction. And also, I'm very much under promise, over deliver. If the contractor says, okay, it's 16 to 18 weeks, I turn to the client and go, expect 20 to 22.
Right.
It's like lead time on a custom piece of furniture, 10 weeks. They're looking at you, and it's like, look, I'd rather it comes in at 8 weeks and you're happy,
right,
or you're going to call me on week 8 and
right,
say, where is my sofa?
Exactly. You said 8 weeks. It's 8 weeks and 30 seconds.
Exactly. You're spot on. You're spot on. You've heard that before.
Oh, yes. 8 to 10 weeks is always 8 weeks. So
exactly.
And then you start to just say, okay, we'll talk 10 to 12 weeks. That's fine with me.
Exactly.
The problem is then they're like, really, 10 to 12 weeks? And some people I go, no, not really. But you you need me to say that apparently. So
Well, and that's one thing as designers, no matter if you do commercial, residential, hospitality, whatever you do, we're people pleasers.
right, right.
And really, I say to the client, I'd rather you're upset now than you're upset with me later.
That's it.
Let's get it out of the way. It's like budget numbers, whatever. Here's the reality. Let's get it out of the way because it's all to respect. I tried to do that when I started my business, thinking, oh, I can figure out how to get it faster. I looked bad every time.
Right. Right.
So that's another thing is we're people pleasers, but we have a value and they're relying on us to be realistic with them.
Yes, and it's so much better to be able to say something that you not reasonably expect, but really truly expect to be able to deliver. And if you can surprise by doing it sooner in the reasonable thing that you thought was reasonable, better for that. So, question for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a chicken or the egg thing. So were you involved in residential interiors, and then, like you said, hey, do you do commercial? And you brought your residential turnkey philosophy to the boutique commercial aspect of your business? Because I would think I don't know if it's 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 25 firms that handle commercial in that regard, that full turnkey. But I know it's more unusual, correct? I mean, obviously, you're differentiating yourself that way, right?
We definitely have a differential in compared to, because as I said, as a firm, we do purchasing for commercial projects. And
that's a big job, though, too, actually.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
It is, but
Which is why most people turn it over.
well, they like we're in control.
Mm-hmm.
They like we're monitoring it. And as a business owner, we have a markup. So you do have to think about, okay, we ordered 10,000 yards of carpet. If we're making $2 a yard, why are you going to give that away?
Why give it away? You have to be able to manage it, though. Right? You have to be able to, you have to be a big grown up business and be able to manage it. You can't wing that kind of stuff because you're now putting out deposits for 10,000 yards of carpet too. You know what I mean?
Yep. You have to manage and be on top of it. But I do say, a lot of times our hourly covers our overhead, and then the sales is what's our profit margin. So you have to also be cognizant of that if you're going to do a service firm, commercial firm, and these are your services. And look at the competition, the volume you're going to need, expediting the project very efficiently. There isn't a lot of room for, okay, let's kind of, nuance this and look at some other options. No, you make the decision and go.
Right.
And so that's also to keep in mind if you're just a service, which again, none of these models are wrong. I think I told you when I saw you, I'm writing a book. It's going to be called "Am I Doing It Right?" is the working name.
That's right.
And it's these experiences and some of the things I've said. So there's no right or wrong. I get asked about flat fees. A lot of times in commercial, I do a fixed fee, but it's very distinct. You get this, 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 and this. Anything else is outside of scope. And so that's just a differential. We're on residential, we're on hourly. And a lot of our commercial, they will spend more money on us for the coordination and the meetings than the design fee because they want us there. They want a human being involved.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, do you find that is the client that pushes you to go out of scope, does that happen more often in one realm or the other, residential or commercial, or anybody who, anybody and everybody may try to do it? It's no rhyme or reason.
Well, I think the distinction, I talk about this in my lectures, and I'm going to talk about it in my book too, is during the recession, I had to go to fixed fees on residential. And the difficulty is customer service. As designers, it's a hobby. It's not a business. Is really educating them it's a business. So, to be very clear, we are currently going out of scope. Oh, I thought it was going to be included in there. Remember this, this, and this. No, it's out of scope. And so, one, it can create an animosity, unfortunately. And so to be careful of that and really, really explaining up front and tracking the time on a project. You can't go back 4 weeks later and say, oh, we went out of scope. Here's the bill. It's like, well, you didn't give me notification.
Right.
So I wouldn't say I would say it happens on both, and I'm sure the listeners would agree. And a lot of designers will do a fee, and then they just keep going and going and going. And it's like, well, wait a minute, you should be out of scope, but they didn't distinguish these things are out of scope. And
Right.
so, again, you have your overhead. I think every owner should know, how much do you need to make a day to stay in business?
I
I
know.
know.
My cost to be open number. That's what I tell
Yep.
them on the show all the time. What's your cost to be open?
Yep, I know exactly what we need to make a day.
Exactly.
And so, just for out of scope, it's how to handle that. Now, on our time billing, one thing we do is we are hourly. Things we split, like I'll split travel time. I charge to get there, I don't charge to get back, but I can roll calls and bill on somebody else. And when we're doing an update, I'm on, I don't know, 12 projects right now. So if I get an update and we review with an employee or project manager, where are we? They'll see it on their timesheet. I'm not billing for it. So we bill bi-monthly. Make sure you bill bi-monthly. And that first phone call that comes like, well, wait, we don't understand why we got charged for this. You can say, well, do you see the other column where we didn't charge you for that?
Mm-hmm.
That is where I'm not going to nickel and dime you. I'm not a lawyer. Our contract, we're supposed to bill you for all of the time that we put in on your project. I just don't think it's fair. I'd like to give you the courtesy of a discount. You will never have a conversation again about what is that time for.
Okay, so what you're saying is that when you send your invoice to your client, you list all of the hours, what tasks you completed in those hours that you're billing for, but you also list the hours and the things that you did that you've decided not to bill for.
Exactly. We use Studio Designer to track time,
Mm-hmm.
and the report will show here's billable and non-billable, and we put on the invoice here's the non-billable time and what that total would be. And so that way, let's say the bill is $6,000 and here's, $1,100 of non-billable time. I think it psychologically lets them know, okay, great, we're not getting nickel and dime. He's not treating us like a lawyer, and we got this extra time in.
And give us an example of some of the things that you are completely comfortable not billing for.
Completely comfortable not billing for. As I said, I would say that when I'm getting the updates,
Okay.
if I'm not actively designing, if it's an update that goes into me designing and stuff, yes. I mentioned splitting time billing. I mentioned there's an email exchange on information or the client calls and I think there's just sometimes you put, this call with the client and you don't put billable and some clients definitely read the reports we send. Others are like, okay.
Right.
And so it's really also as an owner, it's a matter of me knowing, okay, that took a little bit longer because we needed to get code on what FRP, if it meets fire ratings for, some kind of thing that we didn't know. I'm not going to charge the client, but they're going to see in the entire description, it does not say we were educating ourselves, but the employee is required to put in the time, and then I will say, okay, this I'm going to give them non-billable and deduct from that.
Okay, I love it, and it goes along. I have a thing that I've been saying in our own business for many years and teaching our employees, and I've been sharing it on the podcast. Is that from a business perspective, when you give somebody because you've made a conscious decision to do it, you tell them that you've given it to them. Otherwise, they don't recognize the value in that gift, and that's exactly what you're saying. You're saying, oh, you're going to have a list over here and it's going to say 2.2 hours by junior designer Sally to research code for XYZ. And then it says non-billed. And so your client can see I was given a gift. I was given a gimme.
Yes, and it better not take Sally 2.25 hours to research that.
Right.
But it would be more of a description like they're working on floor plans, they're getting specifications on selections. It's more of a grouping. They're required to be very descriptive on the task. They can't just say construction drawings. What did you do? Lighting plans, elevations of this, specifications, finish sheet, title sheet. I need the ammunition there. I'm the one that gets the phone call.
Right.
And I do look at every time billing when it goes out. It's probably one of the things that takes time, that takes away from billing, but I have the confidence when they call, I know what it is. And I can validate, look, I've gone through it. And yeah, that's right.
Well, and I love that right there because if somebody is listening and doesn't know you and your firm and is driving, running, doing laundry, that might not be such a significant statement to hear that you look at every time billing before it goes out. But when they go and look at your website and they see the level of of the scope of the projects that you are doing, that's a huge statement. And that is just the exact sort of statement that a designer who is struggling to be profitable might go by and think, oh, I'm up to the point where I'm doing $1 million a year in gross sales, and I don't really need to look at every little thing like that. I'm out here doing my thing. It's like, no, I don't care if you're doing 1 million, 100,000, or 15 million a year. You got to look at that and you got to know that. Like you just said, if you're the principal, if you're the one who's going to get the phone call on the question or the pushback on the hours, you're not shuffling papers and going, oh, let me see what that was. You know intimately. And the thing is, I guess what I'm saying, Christopher, is on the scope of the projects that your firm is executing, you can't know intimately everything. But you just made a statement that you know intimately the billing.
Yeah, and I do, as I said, I'm getting the updates. I have a joke when I interview that I am on every email. I'm on everything. So if we'll say Sally, because I like Sally's name, if she goes to the Bahamas for a week, your project's not dead in the water. And so again, that's the reassurance and the difference that makes us stand out, commercial and residential, is we are on it. And your office sent some list of general things you ask, and one that was really great was a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Every owner should look at their financials.
Yeah.
There's so many designers that were, right-brained and, well, it's, I know money's coming in. I get a report biweekly of receivables and my bookkeeper's on it, but it also just, again, keeps me in the loop as an owner where we are. And that was a lesson that I learned from a designer that was just very aware of it. And my business manager loves that fact. He's even said, God, you know more what's going on than a lot of my clients.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, it's important. And that's why I kind of stopped us there to retread over that whole statement that you said, that you look at every billable invoice before it goes out, and now you're further expressing that every 2 weeks you're looking at your entire receivables and payables and everything else, because you cannot fool yourself. What happens is you've talked to a lot of interior designers, Christopher. What I find that happens is in the beginning years they don't understand it, so it's easy when we don't understand it and the phone is ringing and we're doing projects to just keep kicking it to the curb and saying, oh, I'll figure it out later. I'll understand it later. My bookkeeper's got it. At the end of the year, the CPA is going to tie it up in a bow. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
All
then
right.
you finally get busier and you grow. And now you've got 3, 4, 5 people, whatever it is. And you've never taken the time to develop a system for learning it, understanding it, overseeing it. And you wonder why you're running $3 million in gross sales and you're not taking home, $50,000 for yourself. And this is the germ of it. This is the germ of it, that even no matter how big you grow or how small you are, you can offload a lot of responsibilities, not this one.
Well, and especially you're completely, and that's why I really encourage look at your financials once a month, your receivables, payables, because you hit the end of the year and all of a sudden it comes back to you, oh my God, we never invoiced the Smiths $12,000 back in May. The Smiths are not going to be happy to get a bill in December for $12,000 that you missed.
That's right, especially because the Smiths think they got away with it.
Right, or
they didn't even know. The project was so big they didn't even know.
I thought we were done. I didn't send it. Well, that's not great for future referrals.
Right.
You don't look good professionally, and I think that's really important, as well as stuff shows up that's like, oh, wait a minute, we have a credit with that vendor. It says we still owe that vendor.
Yep.
You hit the end of the year and all of a sudden it's like, okay, wait a minute, I didn't pass this off to my CPA. I have hours of stuff to research and question, where if you took 10 minutes a week or 10 minutes every 2 weeks, you don't have that issue.
Exactly. Well, it's funny because I've talked about in my book, like the first book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, about how we have a red pen system at WindowWorks because specifically, Christopher, because at the end of the year, we were consistently finding invoices that we had not collected balance due on. And at that point, at one point during that period, we were a 21-person company. And so that was how it happened. So we had 3 showrooms. We had a showroom manager, showroom coordinator in each showroom. We had an installer that was responsible for each of the sales of that showroom. And then I was doing the sales for 2 of the showrooms, and we had a salesperson for the other showroom. But the point is that we had a system for collecting balance dues, but it was not a system that had cross checks. Yeah. And so my husband would do his own audit at the end of every year. And when I tell you every single year, we had that exact scenario where we're like, holy moly, Mrs. Smith, back in July, we didn't get her, whether it was $300 or $10,000. And, that's an uncomfortable phone call 99% of the time.
Especially during the holidays.
Yes, you know what I mean? And people will pay it because most people will. We found that they're anywhere from, oh, okay, like you can tell they know, to, now I don't agree with that, I have to look at my records. But then they're not going to find it. But then we developed systems so that never happened. And it took probably 2 to 4 years to tweak the system. And then finally he would go 1, 2, 5, 6, 7 years in a row and never catching an uncollected invoice. And so now we're very confident in the system. And of course, whatever your system is, ours is old school because we're old school. It's an Excel spreadsheet and a red pen.
Well, that's the great thing. I mean, there's a lot of a lot of programs like Studio Designer just happens to be one we use, which prints out your profit and loss, which prints out your time billing reports, which prints out your accounts receivable. And I think another encouragement, something does get missed like that.
Yeah.
Let the client know, and it's like when I get behind on time billing, when I'm traveling and trying to get to it, when the bill goes, look, we're behind, take the time you need. Okay. And so then that way they don't feel like, oh my God, they're demanding the money right now. It's like, look, our office error, no apologies for this, unexpected. So just, if you need 30 days, 60 days, we totally understand.
Right. So if you've made the first, error in the billing cycle, you give latitude if they're going to come back to you and say, I expected this invoice a month ago and now I'm not ready to pay it, or whatever you're saying.
Yeah. And so fine, in a month, 6 weeks, I get it. Not in the budget right now, and I think that goes a lot further and disarms them from necessarily, like you said, yes, a lot of times they know.
Right.
Unless a lot of times it's like, I know. It's like they never billed me for that, a manufacturer. And eventually it catches up. But same thing. So if you can diffuse it with your client and just say, look, our error, because they owe the money, it's in the contract, but our error, take the time, It usually diffuses it, and it leaves a better view of you as an owner that, okay, well, they worked with us, we get it, mistakes happen, versus, oh my God, they demanded that money, why are they not professional, that kind of thing. Right.
They waited, 25, 30 days late to bill me, but they expect me to still catch them up and get it within the next 3 days or something. Right? So, and the other thing is that the way that you're reviewing your payables too, because I know for us, I don't, computers are only as good as the people that put the information in it. We regularly catch errors on invoicing from vendors, and we've had invoices come to us that are not even for our company. and it's like, I'm sorry, Hunter Douglas, that doesn't belong to us. We never got that. And and I'm not saying it happens once a month, but I'm going to tell you what, if it happens once a year, I worked hard for that money. And if I'm not overseeing that, this invoice literally is, what we do is we have to connect every invoice to the project. You can't just look at a stack of invoices and say, yeah, they're all window treatments, they must be ours. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So. Well, and yes, and it's like the purchasing. My seniors are supervised purchasing. I make a big deal. How wide is it? What is the content? Where is it from?
Right.
Because, it has happened. Something's come in. It's like, wait, this isn't what we ordered it. Especially if you miss a number on, like, let's say a
Mm,
fabric code, and you're like,
mm,
wait a minute, what's the blue fabric? It's supposed to be
yeah.
yellow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to your point, and I don't know if if I mail a check to you but made out to XYZ, you can deposit it.
Right. Right. Isn't it
People think, oh
crazy?
no, they have to check for a signature. Nope, you can deposit it.
Yeah. You can
Um,
fight it after y'all figured out that it was wrong, but yeah, the bank will take it. They don't care.
yep, they'll deposit it. And so that's another thing to be careful that a lot of people don't realize. We learned that it was like, what?
Mm,
I'm old school that it's like, no, the check and you check it and before it deposits, but nope. So another thing to keep in mind. And also part of it is to your point on the getting the wrong invoices, people are so busy,
yes. Yep.
so busy.
Exactly.
And that's another thing of a lot of our customer service for our clients. I'll give you a silly example of what we do. I expect my employees to have an email follow up within 24 hours if they have not heard yet. Another 24 hours, they actually go to my email and do a reply all, and let's say it's Sally. Hi, Sally, have you heard back on this and I wasn't copied? As an as
Ah.
an owner, there's an answer within 10 minutes.
Right.
And your job is to get the information for our client. The other thing, because we're hourly, if we don't have an answer, we still give an update. We don't have the answer. We're on top of it. It's always a thank you. It's
Mm-hmm.
customer service. They want to know that's the benefit they're getting. That's the level of service they're expecting for the level we are.
Right.
And so it's hard because people are so busy, but it's the old saying, the squeaky wheel.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So good. I love that.
And I can get squeaky. I can get because it's my clients. I mean, they're my clients are priority one, and I know their expectation. It's what I expect of myself.
Right, exactly right. I love it. So tell us a little bit about your product development and the different things that you've got going on there. You have two separate entities. One is autographed by Christopher Grubb, and that is to the luxury market and to the trade, right? And then you have CG Collection, which is more for retail and contract and consumer. So tell us a little bit about the two of them.
Well, I love I think designing product has really reignited my creativity. First thing, if you ever think you're going to do product, even if you're going to just self-sell it or take a picture of everything you do custom. 20 years of designing custom furniture, I never took a picture of it by itself.
Oh.
And you're trying to like figure out how do you crop it in the room because there's part of your collection coming out the door. So if you ever think you're going to do it, or even if you don't, take pictures of your custom furniture you do. So yes, Modern Bathroom is I signed my first deal with Modern Bathroom about 6 years ago, and the CG collections it's affordable luxury. I call it consumer price friendly. It's interpretations of some very high-end designs, like a bathroom vanity that was interpreted from $14,000 to $2,100, and it is through big box. You can order it directly through Modern Bathroom, and I'm very flattered. The year I launched, one of my designs was nominated for Interior Design Magazine Product of the Year.
Oh, wow.
Uh, yeah, as they say in Hollywood, it was an honor to be nominated. And so I started based on that and the recognition. I hired a licensing agent out of New York a little over a year ago, and we've been aggressively pursuing product design. And I'm very well known in the bath industry. It's not something we do. Bathrooms, as designers know, can be some of the most detailed rooms to do. The specs and the tile location and where does this go and what's the height of this and certain things. And I've won many awards for those. I am one of the 50 innovators in kitchen and bath design last year from Kitchen and Bath Design News. So I'm very
Wow.
proud of the respect I have. I sit on an editorial advisory board for Kitchen and Bath Business Magazine, and that's some of it. So what we targeted, which as a designer, knowing your specialty, or as Greg is my licensing agent, low hanging fruit, we targeted things that are around the kitchen and bath, or especially the bathroom. So I will have a faucetry line coming out in the fall. Very excited about. There is a specialty drain cover I'm going to have coming out in May. A new vanity line for a different manufacturer. A lighting line that'll launch at High Points. A three-dimensional tile that's so cool. That's actually made in Mexico. And so, again, you can see these cross points into they work for the bathroom, but of course, as a designer, know the tile can be feature walls in commercial, in hospitality. The
Right.
lighting for hospitality, it was not, okay, here's a sconce for a bathroom like we all see. It's something that's unexpected, and I'm incredibly excited. And I think is that the intimacy of getting to just look at one thing has been just so reigniting
Mm.
creativity. Creative. That's what we went. Us designers want to design, and you're managing a project. And what do you mean that didn't show up? And those kinds of things. Well, here is this chance to have this relationship. So, unfortunately, I can't say who they're for yet because they haven't publicly announced. But if you're going to the shows like High Points and the different shows, you will start seeing some of the launches, and I'll be incredibly excited, of course, to share with you and my other friends. So,
Very cool. Very cool.
yeah,
So I have a couple of
yeah,
questions about
sure.
this in case we have any colleagues listening that are interested in the nuances of bringing a product to market. So the first one of the things you said is that for the modern bathroom vanity collections, that they're interpretations of much more expensive vanities, $14,000, type price point vanities that you you interpret for the $2,100 price point.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, Christopher, is it that the original $14,000 vanity needs to be your original design in order to do this, or is it that you could see a vanity in a castle of Versailles and you can come back and do a interpretation of that for your own product line? How does that work?
Well, they were the premiere was the first one, which was a custom vanity I did that was on the HGTV website and a show, and I would get 4 requests a month. Where do I buy it? Where do I buy it?
Okay, so the
Well,
first one really truly was your creation. That was that point, major price point.
correct. And then I had another creation. It was called the Malibu. We did this custom, like 4-inch counter floating on a project in Malibu, and so that was the impetus for those. Originally, they wanted to do go after showrooms and a mid-price price point, and it wasn't something that I wasn't something they were skilled at really pursuing, and there was a shift to go after volume.
Right.
And so there were new designs I did. It wasn't just interpretations. I'm not good at like on my product design. Let's say it's for a faucet. I can't look at faucets. I look at architecture, windows.
Mm.
Is it a trash bin on a street in New York that I love the way it curves? Is it
Mm-hmm.
my pictures are, my phone is just constant inspiration. And so it's not an interpretation of a specific piece of furniture from Versailles,
Mm.
um, but there's just detailing and things that I think help it stand out, and the finishes and things that'll be coming out. So,
Okay. So that's interesting. So your first couple of pieces were your pieces that redesigned so that they could be purchased by everybody that wants it because they were asking for it clearly.
yep,
Okay.
yep, the requests were crazy for it.
Okay. Interesting. And then when you go to do that, I I guess it's funny because I'm not at all unclear that you are doing this well. Okay. So my question isn't because I'm like, are you sure you got this? My question,
I hope so.
okay. My question is more, if somebody proposed it to me on paper, I might have thought that there would have been a disconnect or a difficulty there, and you don't have it. So here's what I'm wondering. So here I have Christopher Grubb on one hand, high-end luxury residential commercial interior designer. And I know that a lot of people use those words connected to their design firm, and we all go, okay, right? But this is the real deal. Okay, this is the real upper level, upper echelon, 5 percenters, 1 percenters. Okay, that's where you are. And then you say to me, well, this gentleman wants to take, his brand and offer something at Lowe's. And my brain goes, how do you do that seamlessly without losing your cachet? And you have done it. And so, and I think now after talking to you and seeing the line and understanding it, I have a grasp on how it happened, but I'd love for you to explain it to us.
Oh, sure, sure. Well, and it's not out yet, but I am doing, because of this experience, a whole chapter in my book about pursuing product, whether you do it on your own, whether you go in with the showroom, you partner with a manufacturer, you have this experience now, and people think, oh, I'm just going to do a product line.
Right.
Yeah, you can, but it's a lot of work. And so that in the writing, this became a whole chapter on that one. And so what happens, let's say you're going to do something similar to what I did with, you have your high end you're going to interpret. You may need to make sure you have quality control. They're made in China. I literally flew over. The first set of samples came, and I rejected most of them. I had metal inlay that wasn't seamed right. I had issues with this that it wasn't right, and requested a remake on a lot of them. Well, I had to fly over to China. I don't remember. It was 38 hours of flying to be on the ground for 41 hours, which is painful.
Whoa.
But to make sure the quality was there because my name is on it. And so also, just to be aware. And if you're going to do that version of what I did, to really work with the manufacturer, it could be something as simple as, look, if we make it 4 millimeters smaller, we don't have to use this extra piece of wood. It's also just in autograph. It's going to be luxury, but are there finishes? What is the manufacturing technique? You want to educate yourself on that too. A lot of us designers like, well, we want it to look brushed, unfinished brass, or whatever. Is it on brass? Is it on zinc and it's powder coated? So that's how that evolved. It was a lot of quality control to make sure, because my name's on it, for the price point, self-closing hinges, self-closing drawer glides. I mean, the quality of what was there met my expectations, because, again, I wouldn't be expanding if it was junk.
Right. And just to be clear, it's not like we have a vanity that starts at $14,000 and we interpret it to be a $300 vanity. It's still a $2,100 vanity. So It's available to us regular people if we want it, but it's certainly not the same as the one in the aisle that's in a box that gets shipped. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And so then what it is what I'm hearing in that is that your interior design firm, Arch Interiors Design Group, is known for quality, for high level of hands-on, for attention to detail. And so those are the characteristics it seems like you bring to the product that is, quote unquote, available to the mass consumer. That even though it's a consumer product, it still embodies those ideals. It's just not slapped together, and if this little thing looks it's okay. You still bring those ideals. So that's sort of the brand messaging in there is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's interesting if you're going to do product design. So when they started pursuing more of a consumer friendly, expanding that, they asked me to do some other designs. Well, as a designer, don't design something you don't like. I did some designs and thought, okay, well, this is more simple. This is what they want. This is a price point that's dropping down to hit that more of a mass amount of sales. But it didn't sell that great because I didn't really love it. And so as a designer, make sure that your product is what you like. Keep it to what you like. Even if it can't be let's say you think, oh my God, this can never be made. This is so whatever. Somebody viewing it could say, wow, if we simplified this and changed this. So
Right.
I can't remember who told me that or where I heard. Maybe at the Bold Summit, somebody had told me that, or I heard it after that. I'm like, well, they're right because I did it thinking, well, this is what they want to sell to their customer. This is what they're expecting for this new niche. And nope, it sold some, but they ended up getting discontinued. The volume wasn't there because I wasn't that. It
Mm.
wasn't a passionate piece for me, and so I'm committed on everything I design now. It's a passion. It's exactly what I love. I'm proud of. And so if you're going to do that, make sure you stay loyal to you and your design skill. You can come up with more designs. Don't sell yourself short.
Right, 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 right. Well, and that's good advice for everything that we do in our business, right? You
Oh
hire
yeah.
the people that you know are the right people. Don't just take good enough, and you take the projects that you know are right for you. Just don't take good enough, and you specify and design spaces that you know are the best that you can do. Just don't accept good enough. I mean, that's what you're saying. It's good enough isn't good enough.
Yeah, and it's just, and we do have situations as designers, like on a project, there will be a budget constraint.
Right,
And, we'll find a substitute that we like,
right.
may not love that, but we still love the overall design. It's
Finish,
like,
right,
yeah, it's like interns when you tell them, look, the fun is about 20% of the process,
right.
and getting the rest in. But I emphasize you are constantly designing, though. If you get a call, there's a situation. What is your commitment to the integrity of your vision?
Hmm.
Just because you're not picking out the wood flooring anymore doesn't mean, okay, we've got a condition. How do you want to address it to keep the integrity of your design? That
Hmm.
has to be part of the fun. And I think that shifts it to, everybody wants to pick pretty, but now you have a commitment in this vision. Are you constantly designing through the process? Is another thing that I think is to a takeaway for doing what you love, or when you have to take something and substitute it, always remember your big vision and what your ultimate look is.
That's great advice. It's great advice because when the pick pretty part is over, then it can become the difficult part, the back and the forth and the discontinues and the back orders and
Wait,
the
did you say can be? Can be? Okay. It can be. I like that it can be, but
it
go
might
ahead.
be. I don't know. Sometimes, but
Uh,
that's a really good message as the leader of your company, Christopher, to inspire your team to understand that you're fighting a fire or you're fighting through a challenge or a dilemma, but you're fighting for your vision and what you imagine this project to be back when it was fun picking pretty. That's a great way to make it feel worth the effort, to feel like, yes, this stinks that we waited 14 weeks for the sofa and now it's not only not here, but it's not coming.
right, right, right. We're having
Yes.
that with a custom conference table right now that they know 10 weeks was when you got the payment. I don't know where you're doing the math. We're at 15 weeks and you still think it's 10. So,
Mm.
when you say it can be difficult,
Yes.
there's days I think, okay, I have 3 moments of pleasure.
Yeah,
I land,
right.
I land the clients, I present, and I'm 90% on, and it's done, and they love it. The rest is hell. We don't
It's
have
all that in
control. That's
between. It's
we
like
we don't.
having children. You have them, you're happy, they're cute, and then they go to college. Yay!
Well, and it's just the depending on the volume of people that we depend on
Mm.
to make our vision come true. I remember, I can't remember where I heard the saying, interior design is the least glamorous business.
That's a great line.
I know, I loved that line. I was like, God, that's such a fit. Everybody would love to do what we do. In interviews, they're like, I'd love to do what you do. I might come to my office for a week.
Right,
You
right.
will you will just be like, never mind.
Right, right. Just start with the math required to do
Yeah,
it. Right there.
exactly.
It's
Uh,
like, forget it. That's awesome. Oh my goodness, you shared so many great little tidbits for us, and really setting up our firm with intention and understanding that 30 years later, 20. What is it? How many years later are you? I can't do math.
well, my business 26. I'm hitting
26.
31 in the industry.
Yes, I mean, and
Yeah.
that's just it. It's like there are certain things that you always must be willing to be responsible for. And that's how you create a successful business, that you don't think that you move up and scale out of that level, those tasks. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You have
No,
to.
yeah, you think it's going to get easier, the process. And the other thing on commercial and residential, it's what is the same. It's like we need to pick this out. There's a solution for this. What is the feeling for that? That's why I mentioned earlier, don't do a distinction on those. Um, that's one thing. And I like your term about, I was going to say, getting easier. It's a complicated business. I think the easy is, the referrals starting to come in, and the things as you're growing can reduce some of it. But I also have a saying, it's like I'm unemployed all the time, meaning I'm looking for the next project always.
That's right.
And so that's one. And I did love your thing about responsibility, and you need to own it. So I have an employee that went to a job site, and there was these light fixtures, and the guy said, "How do these look?" Well, he didn't say, "How's the cable look to hang these?" She thought he meant the light. They got installed. The cable looked horrible. It was too big, the size we didn't want. It was on the drawing, but the contractor still sent a change order to my client, and the client called me. Well, what happened? My clients are not who they are because they're mellow people.
Right.
A lot of them, I have some wonderful clients, and I can keep up with them, is why they like me, but they're not necessarily mellow all the time.
Right.
And he called me, what happened? And he was in a mood. What happened? Well, how did that happen? And I just said, look, I will pay the change order. It's their error. You're upset. It was $800, I think. And he said, no, you will not. You will not, because you own it. You never tried to give me the runaround.
That's
and
awesome.
I think getting respect is really important. Again, it's the confidence to instill in your client you have their back,
Right.
and you have their best interest, as well as creating a space they love. So make sure you own it, and don't give it away. If you didn't make a mistake necessarily, I would have gone back. It would have come back with that contractor at some point. But just because a client may confront you on something, do not make your immediate response, okay, no worries about it. Your immediate response is an explanation, or explaining to them why it is. You deserve it if you deserve it. So many people, going back to people pleasers, they just say, okay, I'll just absorb it. Well,
No.
you still have to pay people.
Right.
And, are you not buying groceries? And so really take a pause and stand up first for it.
Yes. Well, Fred Burns. I love Fred Burns.
Yeah. I love his tips and things.
Oh my God. He said on the show recently, he said the two biggest lenders in America are bankers and interior designers.
Well, and I've said we're not the bank of our interiors.
Right.
I have stopped work on projects, and we have in our contract we can fire the client and they can fire us. And I've only once fired a client and 2 times threatened to. And funny, after you threatened it, they were delights after that.
Yeah, sometimes people need to know that you are running the ship. And if you've been, sort of, kind of steering the ship, but not really the leader, it's like everything else. It's human nature. Who's the alpha in the room? Somebody comes to hire you as a designer because they're coming to find an alpha. I don't mean you have to be an alpha personality. I don't need to be, you have to be crazy pants, but they are coming. If they wanted somebody who was like, well, I don't know, and maybe, they don't need you. And so when you don't act like the alpha, they lose respect. But when you regain it and you recalibrate it and you reframe it, then it's like, oh, okay, right, they're in charge.
Well, and I like that. And I remember I was doing a lecture, and I think I was in Vancouver. And I love to ask when I start doing a lecture, tell me why you're here.
Oh my
You've
God, that's my
paid.
same question.
You do, yeah. Tell me why you're here. I've been invited to teach at schools. I just unfortunately don't. I spend a lot of time with their interns, but tell me why you're here, because it gives me a chance to steer the lecture. And I say, if you leave here and we're like, well, he didn't say what I wanted, you need to ask me now. And one woman said, how do I deal with my competition? And I took a couple beats and I said, you don't have competition.
Right.
I said, I don't have competition. I said, I've been up for jobs in LA with what people could say on my competition, I know them, they're friends. There was a connection that was different with the potential client. And I think that helps. If you think of that, that helps you with your alpha of, you've been chosen and
Right.
you stand out, and not to discount yourself. And it was so cute. She came up at the very end. She goes, I don't know, this weight just lifted off my shoulders. And, that's what's so powerful, as with speaking and making a connection, and the satisfaction of it. So,
Well, and it's the truth. We technically have competition, but ultimately we none of us do,
right.
because you are you, like that little snowflake. There's no other snowflakes like you. And I mean, and it's like crazy to say, but it's so ultimately true. It could be a nuance in the design. It could be the way your conversation is. It could be the way your studio looks. It could be the way your staff reacts and handles the appointments. There is something that will speak to that client, and then none of it matters anymore. But you have to always bring your A game so that you have the possibility of it being the thing that they can latch onto. I mean, I use this example when designers that I work with say, yeah, well, I don't know, because I do have competition. I say to them, for 30 years, I did business in my town 1 mile away from another Hunter Douglas window treatment vendor.
Mm-hmm.
1 mile away. I said,
Yep.
if let me ask you something. Do you think that the Hunter Douglas product that I was selling was any different than the Hunter Douglas product that he was selling? I mean, at
Nope.
least if there's two, right, exactly. I mean, at least if there's two interior designers, you're technically, for the same room, going to deliver a completely different presentation. But if Mrs. Smith on, one street in Livingston and calls me and calls him and wants Hunter Douglas silhouettes, we got the same product. And
Yeah.
so I did not have competition a mile away from me, because my company handles the process completely different than the way his handled it. I have in-house installers. We're all in our, Window Works clothing, are in complete, everything from start to finish is completely different. The only thing that's the same is that shade.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
I say to them,
Well,
if
and
I can do business like that, you certainly can do business when every single thing you deliver is completely unique to you.
Well, and that's what we've talked earlier about, what's your distinction, that you were
Mm-hmm.
able to offer those, exactly what I'm saying about I can do all of this. There's a confidence. And it's
Right.
also personality. I mean, you have a great personality. I'm sure your team reflected that. And coming in, people, I say when I'm interviewing with clients, I say, look, we're going to be dating. This is
And
a
then it's going to get
very
even more serious than that.
well, and it's a very, very intimate relationship.
Yes.
And I have a chapter in the book about psychology. I've had clients hand me a check out, and they're like, "We couldn't be doing this without you." There's some meetings that you're being therapist. You're not necessarily. It's not a lot about design. They want reassurance. They want to just review it. They, are stressed about time. That's part of what I do.
Right.
And so if you're going to go the route I do as a boutique firm and not have the distinctions like a commercial firm, you need to be ready for that and have the patience for it.
Yeah, it's the truth. You got to be a big girl, right?
Yeah, it's a fascinating. I do a lecture, that lecture on designing for couples, and I always ask, because there's so much psychology, if there's any psychologists in the audience, and there's always one person that
Right.
raises their hand, and I'm like, woo, I've got to really up my game now.
Yes, right, right. It's
Yeah.
so true. Well, and
So,
I've interviewed designers who have backgrounds in psychology, and they really do have a little leg up there on
yeah.
understanding the nuance and the dance that you play in order to, just do every part of what you do. So, well, I got to tell you, Christopher, you're awesome. I mean, this has been a pretty long interview, longer than most, but you're just so smart and you just shared so many good tips. I didn't want to cut it off, but I really thank you. I mean, you just. There's a conversation that is that level elevated when you have the experience that you have, where you've run a business for a very long time and you're eyes wide open on the good parts, the scary parts, all that
Oh
stuff.
yeah,
So
it's as you said, experience in School of Hard Knocks, and
that's it.
and just when you make a mistake, and you just don't keep making it because a lot of times there was, like I said, about this, oh, I'll tell them this lead time. Well, no, after the third mistake with that, it didn't
Yes.
happen again.
Right,
Yeah. So,
right,
well,
right.
thank you for that. You're very sweet. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for being with me today.
My pleasure. We'll talk soon.
So let me ask you a question. How often do you tell yourself, I'm so busy this week? I think I'm going to do this or do that, and I'll get to my books next week. And then next week turns into the next. And the next thing you know, it's a month and it's 2 months, and you're not tracking your books, right? The thing that I really, really, really need you to hear loud and clear is that while there are many models for business that are successful, right? So your interior design firm does not have to be run exactly like someone else's firm for it to be successful. But here's the one thing that I've learned in all the years that I've been in business and that I have been looking at it, reading about it, talking with business owners about it. And then, of course, it's only been confirmed in these last 3 years with the insanely concentrated amount of conversations that I've been lucky enough to have with fellow business owners, is that while success has various recipes for sure, what works for one firm, like I said, might not work for you. But the thing is, there are certain things that every successful entrepreneur does. Like there's a few things that no matter what you talk to them about and what their exact business is, something will come up, and it's always that they know their money. That's one of them. Okay? So just like this conversation, it was completely organic. Christopher brought it up, right? And all of a sudden he's like, well, I know what I have to sell every day. And my brain went immediately, as I said in the conversation, that's like what we always say at WindowWorks, our cost to be open number. We know what that is. We have a discussion every single Monday with our entire sales team. Where are we at month to date? Where are we at year to date? Are we on target, or do we need to hustle? Okay? You can't just wake up at the end of the week, the end of the year, the end of the month, whatever it is, and say, oh, it didn't work. Because that's not one of the things that all successful business owners do. One of the things that all successful business owners do is track their money. Okay? So, are you doing that? All right? And if you're not doing that, you need to do it. And if you're not doing it because you don't know how to do it, then you need to reach out and get help. Okay, so first of all, we have Michelle Williams from Scarlet Thread Consulting. She has a podcast now, Profit is a Choice, and she has all types of entry-level free programs and courses, and then paid courses, all the way up to one-on-one coaching. Okay, so if you don't know your cost to be open number and you don't even know the first thing about how to figure that out, then my advice is that to find yourself somebody that can sit you down and help you run through it. Okay, taking charge of your money is priority number one. All right, because what exactly is the point, for crying out loud, of working so hard, of being so darn busy anyway, if you're not making money? And how can you know if you're making money if you aren't paying attention to it? You can't. You're just cruising along month after month thinking, I hope this is working out. All right? Okay, so be sure to look for Christopher if you are going to KBIS. He'll be there, and also he'll be at High Point Market in spring, April 2019 as well. And if you do see him, say hello and tell him that you heard him on the show and that you enjoyed it, okay? And speaking of KBIS, I'll be there too in February 20th and 21st, I believe, are the dates that I'm there. Look it up. Look for me. I'd love to meet you in person. And before that, I'll be at the Boston Design Center at Waterworks on February 12th, leading a panel discussion. And then the next day, back to the good old dirty Jersey here, back to New Jersey for February 13th. I'll be with ASID New Jersey for their monthly meeting presenting Is Your Interior Design Firm Making Money? Okay, this is a CEU presentation, and I will go over, what do you think? We're going to go over knowing your numbers, your cost to be open, why profit margins can make or break your business, and why you must pay yourself a salary. Okay. So if you are part of ASID New Jersey, I'd love, love, love to see you. Okay. For all the information, the details, the dates, the RSVPs, all of that, you can always find that on my website at luannigara.com under events and coaching. And also, please follow me on Instagram at Luan Nigara, because we do usually post it there, if not in the main feed, but on the stories as well. Okay? Alrighty. I really, 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 really hope that you enjoyed this conversation. I liked meeting Christopher. I thought it was a great conversation myself. I loved that, it's a big lesson that no matter how big you are, you still are doing the same basic things that made your firm successful to begin with. And they are the things, some of them are the things that you must be responsible for the whole year, for the whole time that you're in business. Alrighty. What are you going to do? If you need to decide to get on your financials, I hope that that's your decision today. All right. And if you have them locked down, that's awesome. Good for you. I'm so excited for you. All right. So if you do have your financials locked down, maybe you look at them and tweak your goals a little bit, right? All I want you to do is every single day, I want you to decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at luannigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.